And the latest we want to share with you is the NAACP snubbing President Trump, defying all historic traditions. So we have a clip to show you first.
Wait, Nicolai, hold on.
Yes.
Before we go to that, we got to say it right. All right. So here on the All American Talk Show, there is no such thing as the NAACP. It is the NAALCP. All right. Liberal colored people. All right. We got that from Rush Limbaugh. So that's how we refer to it here, the NAALCP. Go ahead.
All right. Mr. Producer, let's play clip 5.
You don't get to ignore him, is my point. He has been the most powerful, the most influential member of the GOP since 2015. How does you refusing to invite him, ostracizing him, not wanting to hear what he has to say to you all, how does that help you? How? I'm not saying agree with him. I'm not saying side with him. I'm not saying befriend him. I'm not saying any of those things. But ignoring him ain't going to get it done. Not if you truly want to be about the business of helping folks, particularly the desolate and disenfranchised in our country, the urban communities throughout America. Not that that's all the NAACP does, because I'm certainly not implying that. All I'm saying is that clearly is who you're interested in helping. Ignoring him and not even inviting him to come and speak at your convention, what's that going to accomplish?
And to talk about that, we've got one of the best friends of the All-American Talk Show, Terris Todd from Project 21. Terris, welcome back to the All-American Talk Show. It's so good to see you.
Thank you, guys. No, bless you. Thanks for having me again. I'm glad to be here.
We love Terris Todd. We love
you as well.
So, Terris, what do you think of what the NAALCP, because that's what we call it here, what do you think of what they've been up to and disinviting President Trump? Or not disinviting, just not inviting at all.
You're not inviting at all. It's really child's play. For quite some time, they've had to, I guess, appeal to their handlers, right? And so that's really what it is. It's political theater. And so, that's just par for the course. And let's be honest, I'm a Gen X guy, right? So I'm 52 years old, and I'm a former president of a local NAACP branch. And then I was also appointed by the Trump administration in his first term. And I can tell you, when I was the president of my local branch back in Michigan, we did a wonderful job with bridging the gaps between people in our local community. Some of our greatest supporters were on both sides of the aisle. And quite frankly, when I was just coming off of my tenure of being the president, the people who supported us the most on the right were the Republicans and Tea Party folks for a few years. They came out in support. They actually asked me how can they get tickets to their annual fundraising dinner. And these were Republican and Tea Party folks. So they said they really enjoyed themselves. They would love to go back. And so it's really unfortunate that the NAACP or the leadership there has now, due political expediency, they took this low road. And so that's exactly why here at Project 21, we decided to send a letter to the president ourselves and say, hey, we have ambassadors. We've been around since 1992. We have people from all walks of life, coast to coast. And Mr. President, our values and our plans actually align up with yours as well. We would love to meet with you for lunch, whether it be at the White House or whether it be at our offices as well. So, but it's really sad, but it's par for the course. No one of my generation even looks to them for leadership. And so I think it's very sad.
Terris, I think that is so awesome that Project 21 invited President Trump to address Project 21 and your fantastic supporters. We know we as mentioned, love you. We love Project 21. What a great group. We love Horace Cooper, my former boss way back in the day at the Labor Department. We cannot wait for this to happen, and we sincerely hope it works for President Trump's schedule. But I have to tell you, I obviously live in Baltimore, and we had those Freddie Gray riots. We had Sandtown torn apart. We had an NAACP office there, and it was working to help we had some very good leadership locally at the time, and they were in the office every day, and they were working to do expungements and work with people on their resumes to help them do job placement. And you know what? I was the only political person who showed up at that office. Me as the little Maryland Republican National Committee woman showed up at that office, and they could not get a single Democrat elected official in Baltimore City or elsewhere to show up at that office. And
well, that's par for the course as well.
Right.
I mean, this idea that somehow as Dems, again, I don't know if you guys know this either, but when I lived my former life, I'm a former elected Democrat for 10 years on the county level. I was a county commissioner for a whole decade. And so this idea that somehow they're all together and stuff like that, and they're all on board 100% is just false, And so, but the African-American community, or the Black community, should I say, here in America, we need true leadership. And unfortunately, right now, the current leadership of the NAACP, again, they had to appeal to their handlers, and really, to be honest with you, that's why you see all these other groups popping up. I mean, if they were really as relevant as they used to be, I mean, why would Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, why would the LGBTQ community and some of these other folks feel a need for them to come up with their own social justice networks, or even Black Lives Matter for that matter? I mean, we understand who they were founded by, but if they were that relevant, why would they feel a need to start their own movement? It's because, they're saying without saying is that we need to do our own thing because we can't lean on the NAACP because we're just on two different paths. And so here at Project 21, we're seeking to be to be that new path for the Black Americans in this country, and really getting serious things done for the Black community around the country.
Well, let me ask you this, Terris, and thank you for that. And I'm glad that so many of the people in our audience had a chance to hear a little bit about your biography. And, it also reminds you a little bit of another friend of ours, C.L. Bryant, who was also part of an NAACP chapter and working with Democrats before he started working on the right. Mm-hmm. What is it that has led so many Blacks to be, I guess you could say, unwilling to listen to what the other side says? Because if you go out and you have any kind of conversation, and I don't want to say all, because I hate generalizations, but you have a lot of these conversations, whether on social media or in person, you say, well, look, you know what? I'm a Trump supporter, or not even introduce yourself as that. Say, you know what? I believe in this. And then you've got all the language. Oh, you're a coon. Oh, you're an Oreo. Oh, you're Uncle Tom. And I say, no, I'm an Uncle Phil. They actually renamed it. But why does that happen? And what is it that people in this audience could do to help change that? Because I don't expect everybody to come and support Trump. I don't expect everybody to be a Republican. But I do expect that we can get to the point where we listen and trade ideas without saying you're evil just because you disagree.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, where do we have common ground? And I think for the most part, it's been a known fact that Black Americans are mostly conservative, but unfortunately, politically, they decide otherwise. And so where we need to get to be honest with you, is that it's kind of like one of my mentors, my spiritual uncle, my bishop's brother, Bishop Tino Smith. He said, when I was a child, I thought as a child. And he said, for the sake of America and the future of our children, how about we put away childish things? Our causes in this country and in our communities are far greater than you trying to play political games, without inviting him. And so, and who knows, they might have done him a favor, to be honest with you. But at the same time, Jesus at least went and met with his enemies.
Yes.
So he at least met with the people he at least met with people who were wronging the people of God. And so, for them to do that for the first time, and then unfortunately, their president had, I saw a quote that he had said that he called him a fascist. I'm like, well, my goodness. Well, okay, NAACP, well, where are you on the issues of fatherhood, which is one of the priorities that we have now at Project 21? Where are you on the front line with fatherhood and putting families back together? Where were they when the Wuhan virus was flying around and people were being forced to take the jab? 40% of Black American students in DC could not return to in-person learning unless they took the vaccine. That's crazy. Where are you at, NAACP, on that issue? Where are you at on the front line with the wide open border that the last or previous administration caused? Where were you at with that? Knowing that these people were not going to Beverly Hills, they obviously got, put off of Martha's Vineyard real quick. But we know they were all going to the hood. They were going to where Black Americans and mostly Hispanic Americans were living, to hide in there and cause a bunch of friction there. And so all you got to do is look at our friends in Chicago, or just look at all inner cities. You can see exactly where they went. And so, to add salt to the wound, you know, Black Americans and the tax dollars of Americans were actually footing the bill for that.
There's a growing interest in socialism among young people in America, but do they know about its
And so, so where's the NAACP on those issues? And so, so unfortunately, I think that, like the scripture says, that to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. I think that the NAACP has run, you know, it's run its course. And I think right now they're on life support, you know, to be honest with you. And so they had to appeal to their handlers, and that's exactly what this was. But unfortunately, they used the president to do that, which I think was a big mistake.
All right, so we've had
let me add one thing to what you said. You know, where were they in calling out Chris Van Hollen, for example, for going down and meeting with Abrego Garcia? Because and Glenn Ivey also for attempting to do the same thing. Because I would ask a serious question: if anybody in my family was put in jail, I got to be honest with you, I never saw a Democrat elected official go down and say, "We're going to have margaritas with you and sit and talk." They didn't. And I mean, we like to crack wise about it, but in all seriousness, if their claim to fame is we're Black and we want you to vote for us because we're Black, then you would expect that kind of representation, and it's not there. And if the NAACP was honest about what it was doing, they would be an honest broker, and they're not. That's right. Well, why weren't they on the front lines with Giovanni and his wife? You know, in the issue of education in Baltimore, the city that outspends 97% of other large school districts in the country. And yet out of 20 plus of their schools, you couldn't find one student that was proficient in literacy or math. Come on, man. Like, why were they on the front line by themselves? You know, NAACP's right there in town. What's going on? Why are they not in the face of Brandon Johnson in Chicago, you know, or the leaders of these school districts? Why? Because they are appealing to their handlers. These are people that our dear friend Kevin McGarry in his book called these people overlords. They are the ones that watch over the rest of folks who would fall for that nonsense, but they're the ones that keep Black folk in line, so to speak. But unfortunately, at Project 21, we're not for it. And again, I thank God that we are taking another path to really call them out. And I'm glad that we're on the front line of this issue.
All right. So, Terris, as usual, you have inspired great comments. We had one from S-Files about the NAACP. Let's bring that one up. Mr. Producer is finding S-Files fantastic comment. If the NAACP wants to do work, they need to go into the communities and help the people who actually need it.
Yes.
True. Shocking concept. Just what you were talking about, for example.
Absolutely.
With
yeah, they need to put their hands on those, you know, hands on it. But they're not interested in that. And we've seen time and time again, that's not what they're doing. All they do is collect money from the branches. You know, they collect about 25% of all the earnings. So it's like, it's truly a business. It's like a franchise, right? It's like running a franchise. I remember when I was president of my local branch, anything dealing with legal issues, we didn't even go to national. We went to the Civil Rights Commission of the state because we were more likely to get a response from them before we actually heard from national. Now, we had a pretty good state chapter, you know, there in Michigan. So I love them dearly, but hearing from national, you weren't going to hear it because those are the ones in the ivory tower that's collecting all the money, and they get invited to the high class dinners and whatnot. And so we just weren't going to hear from them. So anyway, time is up. People have actually started to blaze their own trail. They start their own social justice organizations. And so, like I said before, I think they're on life support.
And here we have from LJ, Democrats are still the plantation owners 160 years later. You know, I look at a state like Maryland that has always been Democrat, that was Democrat in the Civil War, that hated Abraham Lincoln, that hated the Emancipation Proclamation, always been Democrat. I look at these blue cities that have always been Democrat, and LJ's comment seems to ring very true.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting you mention that because I'm reminded of a quote of Dr. Claude Anderson, and I could not agree with him the most or anymore. He said that the reason why they are where they are on the left is because ultimately they want to make for sure that Black Americans are a permanent underclass in this country.
Yes.
And so you sit back and you watch and you see what moves and policies that people are making. You're like, you know what? I can see it just as clear as day. That's exactly what it is. Again, we're taking up the issue of fatherhood, right? So, and bringing families back together, really celebrating fathers who are heads of their households and who are raising their children and so on. And why are they not on the front line of these issues? Because we know when the family's intact, our lives are much better. And it has been in times past, but unfortunately, because of the left and the feminist movement and so on, has destroyed the family, the welfare state and all that, have destroyed our families, yes. Then this is what we got. So we're trying to be on the front line of this issue and really start to highlight really a lot of great things that fathers and mothers alike in the lives of their children. And so I'm excited about this next move that we have.
Well,
and now, Terris, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your recent piece on that, because one of the things I worry about is you look at the Black community and you see how the absentee father is, it's getting to the point where it's being joked about all the time. Yeah. And that's very sad. And then it makes me wonder if the same kind of factors which led to that will start to spread elsewhere. And even when you watch just general pop culture, television, fathers are always portrayed as being dolts or unnecessary. Women, and nothing against women, obviously, I'm a big fan, but a lot of them you get all kinds of credit for being mother and father, but they can't do that. You need a mother and a father. So talk to me a little bit about what you have been discussing and what the folks out in the audience can do to get involved to help further that.
Well, first of all, if you think about it, a lot of our families nowadays, unfortunately, a lot of these young men are being born, and young ladies for that matter, they're being born without a model. So really getting involved in, like we were talking about the NACP with mentorship programs. Why aren't they on the front line of that? Creating positive mentorship programs that actually show these young men and young women what it means to be a father and a mother and to have a family and so on. And so that's really what our goal is to make for sure that we are highlighting and kind of steering and changing the public opinion and the public outlook on what true fatherhood really is. There are people, and again, I worked in the public school system, in an inner city school system to be exact, as a teacher and as an administrator. And even though I've seen, situations where the mother and father may not be together under the same roof, but they still made it work. And so those are the types of stories and things that we're looking to actually, highlight around our country, because people need to know that those things exist. Unfortunately, because of media and because of entertainment industry, being a part of the left in this whole movement, they have destroyed that image. And so we're trying to rebirth and rebuild that image back, because it does exist out there.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's almost like the goal was to take the father out of the household by glorifying it in the media, and that's very sad.
100%. And you think about it, it was never God's will for the mother to raise her children on her own. Never the Lord's will for that. And so she's handling stresses and anxiety, going through things that's possibly causing her to become ill. And, matter of fact, putting her on a path to being in poverty and so on. I mean, that was never the will of God for her to live that life. I mean, it was designed for the man to be there to cover her, protect her, provide for her, and alike, and his entire family. And so, again, those stories do exist out there, and we're looking forward to actually, highlighting those stories. As a matter of fact, you see behind me, I have some of our publications behind me. The latest one we just came out with is on affordable housing. So that's going to be hot off the press pretty soon. The one we're working on now, as we speak, is one that what does fatherhood mean to Black America? And so we're working on that. And so I'm looking forward to actually having these testimonials from these families that are intact and with these fathers at the helm as well, raising their children.
So, Terris, let me just say, as a single mother, yes.
Yeah.
I think what women would most appreciate is a good man with good
Absolutely.
character who actually believes in the concept of protecting
That's
his
right.
family, protecting his children, protecting his wife. And
That's
that
right.
concept of protection
Yeah.
seems to be abhorred really by the left.
Yep.
And they have taught men that's not their role. And that absolutely is a man's
True.
role.
That is certainly the man role. The Bible says that the head of a woman is the man and the head of the man is Christ. So in that order, God has an order. And so again, it also says that if you smite the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. So in other words, if you take the head off the body is sure to die. So for us to sit here and believe or think that we can survive or our families can survive without the father's role, we're sadly mistaken because it's God's order. Not saying that it's not possible, but I'm just saying the children are the ones that are suffering the most because they're being brought into this world like me. I'm my mom raised me. I'm the youngest of 3 boys and my mom was a single parent. And so, but I still didn't have that balance. I didn't have the father's voice and I didn't have the, I always had my mom's voice because, she was there, but I didn't have that balance with the father in the home. And so children deserve to have the balance of both a father and a mother. They deserve that.
And I can co-sign, I did not grow up with the father in my home either. And I had my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, and that was great. But you can definitely see, hey, if you had a masculine voice growing up, that is a profound positive difference.
My father, I say this too, even though he was in Detroit, I was in Battle Creek, Michigan. I still tell people to this day that my father passed in 2009. And I say that he actually passed away a hero in my book because before my father passed, I was 30 years old and I had gone down and I had the conversation with my dad to let him know how it made me feel that he was not at, one of my football games for parent night. And, I've been playing sports all my life, pretty much. And so, but 3 years later, I'm 33 at the time, he calls me up and he said it messed him up. He said he had never forgotten that conversation I had with him. And I drove 14 hours with a pregnant wife and my 1.5-year-old oldest daughter down all the way to Hawkinsville, Georgia. And I had that conversation with my dad. And so it was a blessing because he asked for my forgiveness. He apologized to me. And I'm on the other end, you guys, crying like I'm a 5-year-old kid, man, because to hear my father, ask for my forgiveness and to tell me that he was always proud of me. He never worried about me, being on drugs and living a life of crime and whatnot, because he knew I had a mother that was solid, And so to have that happen, man, it was life changing. I felt a burden lift off of me as a result of that. So God knew exactly what I needed at that moment. And so fatherhood and his voice actually matters because he affirms, he provides, and he protects his children and his wife. He does that. He literally plays. That's why when you get married, when someone gets married, what happens? The father walks her down the aisle as her covering from birth up until the point she gets married. So that way she never goes uncovered all of her life, because when that dad hands her off to the husband, he's saying, hey, you have my approval to carry her the rest of the way. And so that's what that is symbolic of. And so I just want to be able to highlight that in our community because it does exist out there.
ChatGPT gets 123 million visits a day, and most people still use it like a toy. Here is how to use it smart. It's 2025. AI can build a pro-level website within a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, you're still asking it how to write email.
Terris, we cannot thank you enough for sharing both your invitation to President Trump,
Absolutely,
but also your personal story and views on the tremendous importance of fatherhood and fighting for what is right. So thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate you always.
And now wait, before you go, tell everybody and get involved with Project 21.
Yep, you can go to www.nationalcenter.org and go on there. And actually, you can make a donation. You can also sign up for our newsletter. Please do, subscribe to our newsletter. I mean, you get updates all the time from the National Center of what's happening with Project 21, our Able Americans program, and also our Free Enterprise project there as well. And so please go there. That's how you can get involved. My email is on there. Well, I guess it should be on, but if not, it's ttodd@nationalcenter.org. Please reach out to me if you're interested, or if you know somebody that may be interested in becoming an ambassador and sharing some of the same values and things that we have. So anyway, but thanks a lot. I look forward to hearing from you guys.
I'm an ambassador, so hey, it is a pleasure to be a part of it. You do an amazing job, so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys.
Terris,
Take care.
you're great. Thank you so much.